Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Presence podcast. I'm excited for this one today. We have a very special guest, Miss Sneha Shah. Is that correct?
Shah, yes.
Yes. And so we're going to be talking a lot about her story as a woman of color, navigating life, navigating business, navigating corporate, and just really carving out her own path, right? And here's the thing, corporate life is not for everyone. Okay. They may want you to think that everyone should be in corporate, but it's not for everybody. And so if you've been struggling in corporate and trying to climb that ladder, but you realize you kind of need a way out, we're going to be talking about how Sneha was able to find her way out and kind of go against the grain and carve her own path to make the life that she really desired for herself and her family while making an impact. All about that impact. So,
Absolutely.
Sneha, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melanie. Thank you for getting me here on your podcast and giving me a chance to speak here. I really appreciate that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did it all start?
Yeah. So I have been in a corporate for on and off. I took a couple breaks here and there when my kids were born, but mostly for 15 years. And I
Wow.
worked in a pharmaceutical medical device industry. I was in a quality regulatory side, and growing in my career for a long time. And at one point, I really thought that this is where I wanted to be. But then, as time progressed, and as kids started getting older, I realized that I did not want to work 50, 60 hours and ask for permission to take hour off if I have to go for kids appointments or a doctor's appointment or something at school or something or the other. I just felt like this is not how I wanted for a long time. So at that point, I had to think outside of the box, and I started thinking differently.
Mm-hmm. Was there a specific kind of breaking point or some one moment when you said enough is enough? Or was it a gradual?
I think for me, it was a gradual. I
Yeah.
think first time when I really felt that I wanted to do something different was back in 2019. Um, my husband, so we used to live in Colorado at that time, and my husband used to travel to Houston. Currently, we live in Houston. He used to travel to Houston for the current job. And I was working full time. I used to put in 40, 50, sometimes even 60 hours. I was growing in my career. I was getting more and more responsibility at work. I was for a forefront in audits. So a lot of the things I used to do in my medical devices, I used to audit and help companies get approved by FDA. So that was a very demanding job, and
Mm.
every word I speak or everything I said matter in the audit, right? So a lot of the I used to do a lot, and at even though I was growing and I was peak at my career, I really felt like I didn't want to do this. And my husband was traveling, kids needed me, and
Yeah.
I was like, I just don't want to do this. I don't know what else to do, but I
Mm.
just didn't want to grow anymore in this career. And that was really heartbreaking for my own self because I kind of felt like,
Mm.
why am I thinking this way? I'm growing in my career. I want to grow. But then the second part of my brain is like, I can't keep doing this for next 20, 30 years. Um, and it was just, like a double-minded kind of phase where I just didn't see myself doing this anymore. And then in 2020, we moved right around COVID time. We moved here to Houston. And during the COVID, I took a break. And that reassured me that
Mm.
taking a break and being home with kids was what I wanted. I did go back to another job here in Houston for a year, but I knew deep inside that this is not what I wanted to do for life. Um,
Wow. I
So
think that's
it was a
interesting.
gradual over 3 years. I want to say 2019 to 2021, 2022. Those 2, 3 years were where I was kind of going through transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned how like it was disappointing for you to
Yes.
come to this realization, because I feel like we work our entire lives to have that level of success, to be promoted and to grow and in corporate. And
Yes.
it's like this is what I've been working for, but I don't want it. I can see how that would be like a conflict, right? Because you
Yeah.
thought you wanted something and you attach yourself to it. And then when you're in it, you realize maybe this is not for me.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think 2019 is when I got the management positions and I had direct reports. I had team in different countries. It was like I was seeing myself even growing more if I stayed there longer. But I just didn't like it. I was like I have to ask for permission even if I wanted to go for a doctor's appointment. I was so busy that I didn't know what was going on at home. I didn't know what my kids were doing. I just didn't like that.
Yeah. And that's one thing for me for sure. That I know for sure I'm not really cut out for that corporate life. It's the permission.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you permission to be sick. I gotta ask you permission to take a break on vacation. Like if my kids need
Exactly.
something, work, I what? I can't. I that part, because my number one value in life is freedom, right? I want to be
Yeah.
free to be able to do what I want to do. And that I feel like took a lot of my freedom away. And I knew it wasn't sustainable for me personally long term. From the first job I had, I quit after day 2 when I was 14. Right. So
Hmm.
yeah, okay. So talk to me a little bit. The podcast is really focused on women of color, and so I want to talk a little bit about your journey in corporate as a woman of color. Do you feel like you could show up authentically? Do you feel like there were any challenges you faced because you weren't a majority, you were kind of a minority, being a woman and then being a woman of color? Any experiences with that at all?
Absolutely. I really think that women of color do have a little bit harder journey. We do have to prove a lot more than men, especially white men, right? Like and I wouldn't want to say that they get it easy. Of course, nobody gets it easy. But I feel like as being a woman of color, there are multiple issues on a both end. um, us being a women of color, we also have a lot more on our plate as well, and a lot of insecurities that we also have. So I think it goes on both side, but it just makes it harder for us to grow in a corporate career than a lot of other people. And
Yeah.
it was I've had incidents where I felt like I was not favor people were not favoring me over other people. And then I realized that it may not be that way, and sometimes we feel insecure as well, so it goes both way.
Yeah, I do agree that sometimes it is our preconceived notions and we bring our insecurities to situations when it comes to
Exactly.
that corporate life. But then there's also times when it's very real, like the bias and
Exactly.
things like that. And sometimes it's hard to decipher, and then we get into like gaslighting ourselves trying to figure this thing out, like, is it me? Or is it real?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a struggle, definitely. Love that. So when you decided, all right, enough is enough, you put in your resignation, I would imagine, and then what?
So this was back in 2020, right around the time COVID happened.
Mhm.
We moved from Colorado to here, and I asked for. So a lot of people were working from home at that time because of the COVID. So I asked that I'm planning to move, and if I could work from home from Houston. And the company decided that they didn't want that. So they said either you have to travel, or when offices open up, or you don't have, you won't have a job here. And
Mm.
that was a real ticking point. is when I'm like, I don't want to work here. I'm not going to travel. I did put a resignation. I wanted to take a break anyways because during COVID time, my kids needed me. Both of my kids were home. My son was only 2, and my daughter was in second grade, I believe. Yeah, so they really needed me, and I decided to take a break for a year right after moving to Houston.
Okay. All
Um,
right. So then go ahead.
and then I was looking for a job. I took a job here in Houston. I worked for a year, but I was not really. I knew I didn't want to grow anymore. I knew I didn't want to do this anymore. So I wasn't really excited about it. And then about a year later, I decided to put a resignation there as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now you had said earlier that you knew this wasn't it, but you weren't sure what you would do next. How did you
Yes.
figure out, like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do now? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to do something where I had freedom. That's what I think I was after as well. So when I decided that I wanted to do something that I wanted to do for myself, and that gave me an idea of business, but I didn't know what kind of business I wanted to do. So at that point, I was going initially. I started looking into medical devices and businesses that was related to my field, and a lot of them were either too expensive or too hard to achieve or something or the other, and I couldn't do it. At that same time, my husband is in a solar, so he has his electrical engineering degree and his solar degree, and he's been working in corporations for 15 plus years in solar. So he said, solar is really growing. A lot of people are going to go solar in next few years. We are going to need lot more people going into this field. I wish I could do something on a side. And I think that's when it kind of clicked to both of us that you want to do something on a side, I want to do something as well. How about you teach me this and we work on this together? So we started it out together, but me, even after starting, I had a lot of doubts on myself. I was like, oh, I don't know
Mm,
this field. I don't know if I could do this. I didn't tell anybody for a year. About a year, I didn't want to tell people that I wanted to do this, even though deep inside I wanted to do this. It's just that double minded or not having a courage enough to say it out that this is what I'm going to do. So I started this in early 2022, but I think I started talking about it in 2023,
wow.
because I mean, I was still working and I was doing this just on a part time, and I was preparing for it, but I did not want to talk about it. And at one point I realized, well, if I don't talk about it, I'm not gonna grow. I'm not gonna find, and it just that not knowing what to say, and feeling imposter, right? Like I felt like, what if people don't believe me? What if people don't trust me? What if people realize that I don't know what I'm doing?
Mm.
All of those were big issue for me initially.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
a lot. That's a lot. Like a full year of just kind of keeping quiet. That's wild. Right? Because you, as you know now, you have to talk about it. And for
yeah,
me doing personal branding, I'm cringing over here like, what do you mean to talk about it for a year? You have to be the brand and talk about it. And so, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally understand, like, those thoughts of, I don't
yeah,
know if I could do this.
yeah,
When I do talk, are people gonna look at me like, girl, what are you talking about? Right.
yeah,
So I like, and I think a lot of people don't. I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of people don't say these things out loud, right? They don't outwardly say, I'm doing this thing, but I'm nervous about it. We keep that inside and it eats at us. And, unless you're like in therapy or have some outlet to be able to talk this through, um then it's going to be very hard for you to be able to grow and to trust yourself, because what I know is the power and the confidence comes from the doing. And
Yeah.
so if you're just kind of sitting with your thoughts without taking the action, without talking to people, without putting yourself out there, like you're never going to get the confidence that you need, that you're looking for, that you want, right?
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what happened. More and more I did it, I gained that confidence. And more I talked to people, more and more I started going out, telling people. I think I gained that confidence. But first year, I didn't have people to talk to, and I didn't want to talk to people. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. Like if you don't talk to people, people are not going to talk to you, and it just becomes, you know, a circle or cycle where you're not out there talking about it, so nobody really talks about it either.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you get from I'm gonna shy away in my corner, I'm not gonna say nothing, I'm not gonna talk about it, to go solar, Sneha? How did you make that transition?
I think I had to grow myself first. And I
Mm,
realized that if I want to do this, so I had two choices, right? Like go back to corporations. I used to get random calls every once in a while from recruiters and say, "Hey, do you want to work in they just on a LinkedIn or random places?" And I would get tempted. I'd be like, "Should I interview with
mm,
them? Should I go back?" And then I would feel that, okay, what if I do get a job? And that would scare me. Like, I don't want a job. I don't want to work that 9 to 5 long days again. So it was a back and forth during that year when I wasn't talking about it. Like, I wanted, I would get a random job opening on a LinkedIn, and I would feel like I want to apply, but then I was afraid of getting the job. Like, what if I do get a job? I don't want the job. Then why do I want to apply? That cycle of, like, and then I realized I'm going in a cycle. This is not going to work. So at that
wow.
point, I told myself I'm no longer going to work full time. And I sat and meditated sometimes that if I go back and work full time, I'm feeling myself. I'm not going to do this
Mm,
anymore. I'm going to open up. I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm going to braven up. And I think that was a an opening up moment where I'm like, look, I'm gonna fail here or I'm gonna fail in corporate. I'd rather fail where I want to get to, and try it out and fail is anytime better than not try it out and fail. So
ooh.
I think that's where it changed my mindset.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Where you want to fail? Do you want to fail in corporate or do you want to fail in business? I love that. I love that perspective, because there will be failure, quote unquote failure, right? You will, make, because you don't know what you're doing quite yet, right? And there's gonna be missteps, and you're gonna lose money. You're gonna make bad investments. Like all these things are going to happen. It's just a part of the journey, and I think it's important to be able to trust the journey. Trust yourself and trust in your decisions and trust your intuition, and just know I'm working towards this and it's going to happen.
Right.
And just keeping holding on to that belief, that will kind of carry you through. I'm curious to know, because you say you started this together with hubby, right? Curious
Hmm.
to know, how did he kind of play into you opening up? Did he encourage you at all? Was he like giving you your space to just figure it out? And when you're ready, like, how was he in terms of that? We don't talk about those hubbies enough, I don't think.
Yes, I agree. No, I am blessed to have a really supportive hubby. He encouraged me from literally every step of the way. He said, take chances in life. And, I was afraid, where I'm like, what if I don't make money for a long time? How are we going to survive? And
Mm.
he was there to step up and say, don't worry, I'm here. I make money. I'll handle us. And he has been supportive all the way through. And I think without him, I wouldn't have been here. Um,
Mm,
and he has supported me not just mentally, but in every step of the way. I mean, middle of the day or even at the dinner table, we would talk about solar. I would be like, "Hey, I talked to customer and customer asks me this question, I don't know how to answer," and he'll be like, "Oh, okay, I'll explain it to you," because he's been in the industry, he knows ins and outs of the industry. So
mhm.
he will explain things to me. Even our kids now know more about solar than anybody else because we talk about that all day long. Even at the dinner tables we talk about solar.
Love that. Family business.
Yes.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about, when you first started kind of putting yourself out there, right? And decided, you know what, I'm going to be the face of this thing. I'm not going to hide anymore. How was that in terms of your progression, if that makes sense? So was it like you put yourself out and then right away you got some action, or did it take a few times to start easing your way into it? Like walk us through that.
I think few time to start easing my way into it. So first, I started opening up with friends and family, people that I knew. So initially, I didn't even open up with them. So
Mm,
then I started opening up more with my friends and family, and like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I was taking classes, how to market my business, how to. So I was learning a lot. So I would talk about that, and I would talk about how solar helps you save money, how to friends and family. And
mhm,
when I heard their response, and they're like, "Well, there are not a lot of women out there doing this. There are not, forget women, there are not a lot of people out there who will explain it in a way you explain." Because a lot of people think solar is like, oh, somebody's gonna knock at the door and they're gonna sell you solar and they're gonna scam you. That's not
mm,
it, right? Like, there is a lot more to solar. You can save a lot of money. um, you can solar is not a short term, it's a long term. You put it on and it will generate electricity for 25, 30, 35 years. So now you're saving money for years to come. So when I talk to people like that, they understood
mhm,
it better, and
mm.
the response was much better than what I expected myself. So when I heard people were understanding me and people were valuing my knowledge, it boosted my confidence a little. And it was
Mm.
a journey over the period of time where me doubting myself kind of turned into exciting, where I'm like, well, I don't need to doubt myself anymore. People understand. Um, people value my knowledge. People know what I'm doing. So that really helped as well.
Love that. So it
Yeah.
sounds to me like you started building your personal brand
Yes.
and you started attaching self to the product. So it's not just
Yes.
solar, solar, solar. It's Sneha is going to help you with your solar. It's a
Yes.
little bit of a different experience, Sneha, because X, Y, and Z, right? And I'm talking about it in a way that you're going to understand. Like all these little differentiators, right? Draw people to you,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yes.
A lot of my customers are just like me. A lot of
Mm,
my customers are people with family, with kids, a lot of people own homes. They plan to live in their homes for a long time, and I can relate to them. So I feel like I was my own customer, and that also helped me understanding what would I want from myself, right? Like, if I had a solar gal come to me or talk to me, what would I want? And if I provide them the same thing, they would understand me, or they would want the solar the same way. And I think that also resonated with people.
yeah. I love that you mentioned that because a lot of times you hear that type of, I am my client when it comes to services and coaching, right? Where it's more of like a mindset, oh, I was also in this situation and now I could coach you through this situation. And a lot of times I don't feel like I hear people say I am my client with like products or something like more transactional versus
Yeah.
a coaching relationship. So I appreciate you talking about that because I think, you being able to resonate with your audience is important across the board, no matter what you're selling. I think it's a
Yeah.
definite, differentiator for you to be able to say, I can relate. Here's why. We share similar stories. And I love the fact that it's coming through even in something outside of coaching.
Yeah.
Love that. Love
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
So, solar is definitely something I feel like not many people know.
Yeah.
And more you know about it, more and more people realize that, oh my God, I could use this service as well. And it is not as expensive as I thought. It's actually saving me money rather than just, spending money. So there are many ways to think through why you need to go solar.
Yeah. And I think a big part of your differentiating factor too is that education piece. Like just
Education.
educating, not necessarily selling right off the bat, because like you said, people think it's a scam. They have these notions. And I think now it's you are your voice is
Yeah.
going to now change their perspective around this topic of going solar.
I think
Love
education is huge in our industry, is because
it.
there is a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication in solar. Same thing, I could say it in a different way and would mean completely different. Like, for example, like, tax credit. A lot of people talk about tax credit in our industry. Tax credit is what you get back at the after paying taxes, but a lot of people would understand it as a discount, things like that, right? So there are a lot of miscommunication in our industry or misunderstanding in our industry. So my job is to make sure that you understand what you're getting into, and you can make your decisions by yourself. My job is to make sure that you know what you're signing up for, and you make your decisions.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about is your business also making an impact, because I'm also big on impact, right? So the people that
Yes.
I tend to work with, yes, they want the money, of course. Yes, they want, the visibility, but more than a lot of that stuff, they want to make an impact. And so talk to us a little bit about how you feel about the impact that this business is making.
Oh, huge, huge. So solar is, when it comes to climate change, there is a huge impact we can make. And I think helping, so there are multiple ways I can make an impact in solar. One, when I help families, I help them save money. That what we already talked about. Second is climate change, right?
Mm,
When we are going green, when we are reducing carbon footprints, um, we are making sure that we leave this world more cleaner, and safer for not just us, but for our kids and grandkids and generations to come. If I go out and help 10, 20, 30 homes go solar, it is going to be that much more cleaner for next 30 years. For our planet is going to be that much more cleaner for next 30 years, right? And it's going to be impactful in many ways. Like our kids and grandkids will inherit this planet more greener and cleaner. And we do not need to leave this planet dirtier and polluted. That so I think that's a huge for me. Every home I help out there, I feel good. I feel like I've done something better for not just for that family, but for this planet and for next generation. So that's huge for me as well.
it made me think about, because I, of course, read your profile and you talk about, I mean, okay, it says the typical residential solar installation, which is about 7,000 watts, offset emissions equivalent to planting 180 trees annually. That's
Yes,
from one.
that's from one house. Yes,
That's
180
phenomenal.
trees. So either you go solar or you plant 180 trees.
Right.
Pick one of that. Like, think about that. Like, if I pick a family and I say, hey, you want to go solar or you go plant 180 trees, which one is better?
Right.
And yeah, it is a huge impact out there,
I
in
love
terms
it.
of, yeah,
Yeah, I think my favorite part of your story is just all of it. I just feel like so many of us don't focus in and figure out what we want out of life, and we stay stuck, in that corporate rat race or whatever other situation that you may feel stuck in. And I love that you were able to recognize it, and it took a while, but you still recognized it and started making moves and gradually decided, you know what, I'm done. I love the fact that you are creating that lifestyle where you're able to be there for your children and prioritize family. And I love that you're able to attach yourself to a business that makes an impact. I mean, this is the life.
yeah,
This is a good life. And I applaud you for making these decisions and, enduring what you had to endure and overcoming what you had to overcome to be here today and talk to us with confidence about what you do now. I think
yeah.
it's a phenomenal story you have. Appreciate you for
Thank
sharing it.
you. I really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Yes, 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 ma'am. So, if you had to share with our audience any tidbit, any tip, any strategy, any quote, anything at all surrounding the idea of just carving out your own path in life or career, what would you tell someone?
I would say listen to your heart, listen to your gut feeling. I knew that I didn't want to be in a corporate world for a long time. That was my heart. But my brain kept telling me, don't do it. This is going to be hard. You're not going to be succeeding. You're not good enough. You
Mm,
don't know enough about solar, right? But deep inside my heart, I knew that I can do it. It is just so definitely when you use your brain a lot, it does come back, the imposter, not knowing enough, not, but you can work towards it. Nobody knows enough. I mean, first time when I became mother, I didn't know how to raise a child. And now I have two kids and I'm raising them beautifully. At least that's what I think, right? Um, we all, we all try our best, and I really am putting 100% effort to raise a child. I'm going to do the same to grow my business. I'm going to put my side 100% effort. And whatever's on, whatever's going to work out is going to work out. And I really believe in um, the universe helping me out. When I put in an effort, universe will help you out. And I think that's where I am.
I appreciate that. I love what you said. Nobody knows enough.
Nobody knows enough.
Nobody knows
And,
enough.
and what is enough, right? Like, the bars keep getting higher and higher. When you know this much, you feel like, I wish I would know that much. What is enough?
Mm,
There is no exact number. Oh, when I get to 100, that's enough. It's not enough. If you may know everything about one topic, but you may be perfect mother, but you may not be perfect businesswoman, or you may be perfect businesswoman but may not be really good at finance and knowing how to handle your money. There are millions of things. What is enough? That's the issue. Like, we all think we don't know enough. Nobody knows enough.
wow. That's so profound. That's so profound when you really sit and think about that notion of feeling like you know enough.
Yeah,
You're like constantly chasing the enough, but the
enough.
enough
And
never comes.
so just take a step without knowing enough. Just go out there and do it. That's where I am right now in my life.
I
Just
love it.
go out there, do it. Let it be. Let universe take care of you.
Love that. Love that. All right. So, how can someone connect with you if they're interested in solar, if they want to just talk to you about your story or just want to be in your energy, in your space? How can they connect with you?
There are many ways to connect with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a website. You can connect with me on a website. My email address is also on my profile. Feel free to reach out through my email address. um, if you want to go solar, I'm always here to help you out, and we can come up with ways to finance it. We can come up with ways how to design, what panels, all of those questions I'm here to answer. And feel free to reach out.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sneha. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you just bringing your energy and your thoughts and your perspectives and just everything. Everything. You're a
Thank you.
beautiful soul, and I appreciate you for joining me today on my podcast. If you're interested in solar, if you want to learn more about how Sneha, carved out her own path in life and in business, then connect with her. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Connect with her on her website. They'll be in the show notes somewhere. And so I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for having me on here. I really appreciate that as well. And I love your personal branding page. I also went on your LinkedIn and I really love it. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Yes, for
Yeah.
all your insight and all your help. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So if you enjoyed this episode and you want to support the podcast, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review. If you're watching the video version, subscribe on YouTube. If you are on Apple or Spotify, subscribe there, but definitely show some love so I know that I'm putting out content that you're interested in. All right. Again, make sure you're having an empowered presence today. Empowered just means the authority or power to do something, and presence is the state of fact of existing. So just be who you are and stand in your power. Happy self marketing.
All right.